Lurch. Big Lurch wasn't always on some psycho-cannibal timing though. Real talk. Homie was actually making moves in the Dallas rap scene, grinding with his crew Cosmic Slopshop, trying to get that bag like any other hungry artist coming up in the game. Dude was part of the group Cosmic Slopshop, and even dropped a solo joint called It's All Bad in 2004, which is crazy ironic considering how bad things really got for this fool. He was networking, building his buzz, and doing all the regular hood celebrity that rappers do when they're trying to blow up. But yo, behind all that grinding and hustling, Big Lurch was battling some serious demons with that angel dust. That PCP was eating his brain alive, fam. And here's where it gets really foul. There were allegations that his record labels like Stress Free Records and Death Row Records were straight up supplying him with drugs to keep that gangsta rap image authentic for marketing purposes. Like, these industry vultures were allegedly feeding this man's addiction just to keep him looking street for the cameras. That's some real predatory, exploitative bullshit right there. Now check this out. April 10th, 2002 was the day this whole situation went completely left and entered straight horror movie territory. Big Lurch, high as a kite off that wet, murdered his roommate Tanisha Isaias by literally tearing her chest open, ripping out her lungs, and eating parts of her body. Bruh, I can't even begin to describe how absolutely demonic and sick this shit is. When the police rolled up, they found this fool butt naked, covered in blood, wandering around the street like some kind of zombie. The whole aftermath was swift and brutal. No cap. Big Lurch tried to hit them with the insanity plea, claiming that PCP had him so twisted that he didn't even know what reality was anymore. His lawyers were basically saying the angel dust had him so gone that he turned into a whole different person, like some Jekyll and Hyde type shit. But the courts wasn't trying to hear none of that. They rejected his insanity defense under California Penal Code section 25.5, which basically says you can't use drug intoxication as an excuse for being crazy. In June 2003, they hit Big Lurch with murder and aggravated mayhem charges, and on November 7th, 2003, the judge threw the book at him with life without parole. That means this man ain't never seeing the streets again, period. He's been locked up at California State Prison, Los Angeles County ever since, probably in protective custody because even hardened criminals don't play with cannibals. This whole situation opened up a whole can of worms about how the music industry be exploiting artists. Tanisha's family sued Big Lurch and the record labels in 2003, claiming they were pumping him full of drugs just to keep that authentic street image going. That lawsuit was basically saying these labels turned this man into a monster for profit, which is some real sick shit when you think about it. As of 2025, Big Lurch is still rotting in that cell with no hope of ever getting out. The internet still be talking about this wild case with posts like that July 2025 Facebook video saying he was next up until he ate his roommate. People still can't believe this really happened. C Murder. C Murder was straight up No Limit royalty, dropping heat like Life or Death back in the '98 and killing it with TRU. Being Master P's blood meant he had access to the best beats, the dopest features, and all the industry connections a young hustler could dream of. The whole No Limit camp was running the South during the late '90s, and C Murder was positioned to be one of the main faces of that empire. But check it, C Murder's story gets dark way before his music career even took off. When his brother Kevin got murdered in 1990, that shit changed him completely, made him go AWOL from the military and dive headfirst into that gangster lifestyle. Losing family to street violence at a young age will definitely put you in a different headspace, especially when you already coming up in New Orleans where that street code runs deep. The first major red flag was in 2001 when C Murder caught attempted murder charges for blasting at a nightclub owner and bouncer during some beef. He ended up copping a plea for 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder and got hit with 10 years. That should have been his wake-up call right there, but sometimes when you feel untouchable, you keep making the same mistake. Then came January 12th, 2002, the night that would end C Murder's career and freedom forever. At a club in Harvey, Louisiana, got heated, and 16-year-old Steve Thomas, who was just a fan excited to meet his idol, ended up getting beaten and shot to death. C Murder got arrested on January 18th for disturbing the peace, but they soon hit him with the murder charge. The legal proceedings turned into a whole circus, real talk. They convicted him in 2003, but that got overturned because of jury issues. Then in 2009, they hit him again with a conviction on a 10-2 jury verdict, which was legal in Louisiana back then, but is now considered unconstitutional. On August 14th, 2009, they gave him life without parole at Angola, that notorious Louisiana State Penitentiary where so many brothers go to die. King Von. King Von was a Chicago drill rapper signed to Lil Durk's OTF label, known for albums like Grandson, 2019, and hits such as Crazy Story. His storytelling ability was unmatched in the drill scene. He could paint vivid pictures of street life that were so detailed and authentic that they felt like confessions rather than just music. But that authenticity came from a dark place, because Von was allegedly living every single thing he rapped about. Von was implicated in multiple murders, with allegations of up to 10 killings throughout his young life. The streets labeled him everything from a serial killer to a stone-cold demon who had no conscience when it came to taking lives. He was charged in 2014 for the murder of Malcolm Stuckey, but got acquitted, and was suspected in others like Modell Lil Jeff McCambry in 2012 and Gakira K.I. Barnes in 2014. Von's criminal history began at age 16 with arrests for armed robbery and assault, showing he was already deep in that street life as a teenager. The 2014 murder charge for Stuckey's killing kept him locked up for 3.5 years until he was acquitted in 2017. He was also hit with attempted murder charges in 2019 alongside Lil Durk for an Atlanta robbery shooting, but bonded out. During his time at Cook County Jail, Von actually earned his GED, showing he had intelligence and potential beyond the streets. But that education couldn't compete with the pull of his environment and the trauma that had shaped his worldview from childhood. What made King Von's case so controversial was how he used his music to allegedly confess to real crimes. His interactions with police involved multiple arrests and FBI investigations linking him to FBG Duck's murder. There's even a posthumous wrongful death lawsuit tying him to Lil Pab's killing. Von's beefs were legendary and deadly. He had major conflicts with FBG Duck, dropping diss tracks like Dead Bitch that mocked deceased rivals in ways that crossed every line of decency. His beef with Tuka Gang involved constantly disrespecting dead members, and his conflict with Quando Rondo ultimately led to his own death. As of August 2025, headlines still focus on Lil Durk's federal murder-for-hire trial, linked to revenge for Von's death, with 5 OTF members charged in Lil Pab's killing. Declassified FBI documents allege Von ordered FBG Duck's hit, and a YouTube video titled "Rap's First Serial Killer" was removed in 2023, but keeps resurfacing in discussion. Von's death came in November 2020 during a brawl in Atlanta, where he assaulted Quando Rondo before being shot by Lil Tim, who was later acquitted on self-defense grounds. The irony is that Von, who had allegedly survived so many attempts on his life and taken so many others, was killed while being the aggressor in a situation that had nothing to do with his Chicago beefs. Von's criminal background was rooted in Parkway Gardens, O Block, where he grew up after his father was killed when Von was 11. He joined the Black Disciples gang at age 12, and what turned him into an alleged killer was Chicago's drill scene that glorified violence, poverty, and retaliation after losses like his friend T. Roy. King Von's legacy is complex. He was undeniably talented as a storyteller and influenced artists like Polo G, but his life was marred by allegations of extreme violence that went far beyond typical street beefs. Whether you see him as a product of his environment or a cold-blooded killer depends on your perspective, but there's no denying that his story represents the darkest possible outcome when drill music and street life completely merge. Mac Minister. Mac Minister was making serious moves in the Bay Area scene, connected with SMC Records and getting features with heavy hitters like E40 and Snoop Dogg. The Bay was having its moment during the hi-fi era, and Mac Minister was positioned to ride that wave to the top. Having E40 and Snoop co-sign your work meant you had legitimate street cred and industry respect, which is exactly what you need to blow up in this game. But everything changed when the Bay Area lost its crown jewel, Mac Dre. When Andre Mac Dre Hicks got murdered in 2004, it wasn't just the death of a rapper. It was like someone ripped the heart out of Bay Area hip-hop. Mac Dre was beloved in the streets, and his death sent shockwaves through the whole community, setting off a cycle of revenge that would claim multiple lives. In 2005, the streets got their revenge when Mac Minister allegedly orchestrated the murders of Kansas City rapper Fat Tone and his partner Jermaine Cowboy Akins in Las Vegas. These weren't no regular shootings either. They used an AK-47 to handle their business, showing this was some serious calculated retaliation. Taking it to Vegas also showed this beef had spread way beyond the Bay Area. After the murders, Mac Minister became one of America's most wanted, with the feds hunting him for 10 months. Being featured on that show meant millions of people across the country were looking for your face, making it nearly impossible to move around freely. They finally caught up with him in San Francisco on March 2nd, 2006, ending a manhunt that had consumed massive law enforcement resources. Mac Minister's history with the police goes way back though. In 1999, the cops had already raided his spot twice, and during one of those raids, they killed his pit bull. That kind of harassment and violence from police definitely breeds the kind of resentment that can lead to more serious conflicts down the line. In 2008, they hit Mac Minister with 2 counts of first-degree murder and conspiracy charges. On July 31st, 2008, the judge gave him life without parole, basically ensuring he'd die behind bars. The prosecution painted a picture of a calculated killer who planned and executed a revenge plot that left 2 men dead. But here's where the plot thickens. In 2022, a key witness recanted their testimony, claiming they lied to get a lighter sentence in their own case. This This recantation actually got Mac Minister a new trial on June 8, 2022, giving him his first real shot at freedom in over a decade. But as of 2025, we still don't know how that retrial played out, and reports from 2023 suggest he lost another court battle and remains locked up. Even with witness recantations, the system seems determined to keep him behind bars. The whole Mac Dre situation created so much chaos in the Bay Area. There was a 2024 documentary about Mac Dre's final hours that referenced Mac Minister's role in the retaliation murders, showing how this tragedy is still being examined and discussed decades later. Max B's relationship with the criminal justice system started way before he ever touched a microphone. At just 18 years old, he caught an 8-year bid for robbery and served from 1997 to 2005. Spending nearly a decade locked up during your most formative years will definitely change how you see the world. And it probably gave him that hunger and pain that made his music so authentic and emotional. When he touched down in 2005, Max B hit the ground running in the music game. He became famous for mixtapes like Public Domain and his collaborations with French Montana on the Coke Wave series, pioneering that melodic, auto-tuned wave sound that influenced everyone from Future to Travis Scott. The Wave God wasn't just a nickname, it was a whole musical movement that he created from his Harlem block. But success in music couldn't keep Max B away from the streets. In 2006, he orchestrated a robbery at a Fort Lee, New Jersey hotel, targeting some cat named Alan Plowden. This was supposed to be a simple lick, run up on someone with money and take what they got. But like most street schemes, what seems easy on paper gets complicated real quick when real people start making real decisions. During the robbery, his man Kelvin Leardam ended up killing David Taylor during a struggle, turning a simple theft into a body. Once someone dies during your robbery, you're not just looking at theft charges anymore. You're facing felony murder, which carries the same penalties as if you pulled the trigger yourself. Max B got arrested on September 29, 2006, and they hit him with $2 million bail. That astronomical bail showed how serious these charges were and how much of a flight risk they considered him. He managed to get out briefly in 2007 after selling his publishing rights, basically trading his future music royalties for temporary freedom. But that freedom didn't last long. In 2009, they convicted Max B on 9 out of 11 counts, including felony murder, kidnapping, and armed robbery. The judge initially hit him with 75 years, meaning he wouldn't be eligible for parole until 2042. For a young man still in his 20s, that was essentially a death sentence. He'd be an old man if he ever saw freedom again. But Max B's legal team kept fighting, and their persistence paid off in 2016 when he copped a plea deal for aggravated manslaughter that reduced his sentence to 20 years. That plea deal was the difference between dying in prison and potentially having a life after incarceration. Max B is scheduled to be released on November 9th, 2025, making him one of the few artists on this list who will actually taste freedom again. Social media has been counting down to his release, and March 2025 articles have been documenting his journey from incarceration to anticipated freedom. G Dep was living that bad boy lifestyle, signed to Diddy's label and dropping heat like his 2001 album Child of the Ghetto with the banger Special Delivery. Being on Bad Boy during the early 2000s meant you had access to the best producers, the hottest beats, and all the industry connections you needed to blow up. Special Delivery showed that G Dep could make radio hits while keeping that street edge that Bad Boy was known for. But behind all that success and industry lifestyle, G Dep was battling some serious demons with that angel dust. He had over 25 arrests since 2003 for drugs, burglary, and larceny, all because he was hooked on PCP. That's a whole pattern of desperate, addiction-driven criminal behavior that showed how completely that drug had taken over his life. When you're hitting licks and stealing just to get high, your priorities are completely f***ed up. The murder that would define G Dep's entire existence happened way before he ever touched a microphone or stepped foot in a studio. Back in 1993, when he was just an 18-year-old knucklehead from Harlem, he shot and killed John Henkel during a robbery attempt. He fired 3 shots during that robbery, then bounced and got rid of the gun. Just a teenager making the worst possible decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Here's the crazy part though. G Dep didn't even know Henkel had died until he confessed to the crime years later. Imagine carrying the guilt of thinking you severely injured someone, only to find out when you confess that you actually killed them. That's some heavy psychological weight to carry around for decades. In 2010, as part of his recovery process, G Dep made the incredible decision to voluntarily walk into a police precinct instinct and confessed to the 1993 murder. But get this, he had actually tried to confess twice before, but was too high on PCP for the police to take him seriously. Can you imagine being so eaten up by guilt that you keep trying to turn yourself in, but your addiction keeps sabotaging even your attempts at redemption? When G. Depp finally made his successful confession in 2010, they charged him with second-degree murder. In 2012, he got convicted and sentenced to 15 years to life at Fishkill Correctional Facility. The wild thing about this conviction is that it was based entirely on his own confession. Without him walking in and admitting what he did, this case would have remained unsolved forever. G. Depp clearly used his time in prison to continue working on himself and his recovery. His sentence got commuted by New York Governor Kathy Hochul in 2023, recognizing both his voluntary confession and the rehabilitation work he had done during his 13 years behind bars. G. Depp got released in April 2024 and immediately started advocating against youth incarceration. In February 2025, he was featured on ABC News as a rapper turned advocate, using his prison experience to help teens avoid crime. That's some real full circle redemption shit right there. There was even a reunion with Diddy in September 2024, showing that despite everything that happened, his former boss was supportive of his rehabilitation and return to society. Cassidy. Cassidy had established himself as a serious force in hip-hop with gold albums like Split Personality from 2004 and bangers like Hotel. His success was built on being one of the most technically skilled lyricists to ever come out of Philly, with wordplay so complex and punchlines so devastating that other rappers feared battling him. In the battle rap world, Cassidy was like that dude nobody wanted smoke with because they knew he'd embarrass them in front of everyone. The incident that would change everything went down in 2005 and involved the kind of firepower that showed this wasn't no regular street beef. Cassidy and his crew got into a shootout where they were blasting at 3 unarmed men with pistols and an AK-47, ending up killing Desmond Hawkins and wounding 2 others. Using an AK in a city shootout shows a complete disregard for innocent bystanders and the kind of reckless violence that gives hip-hop a bad name. They issued a warrant for Cassidy on June 9th, 2005 for murder and related charges. Instead of running like a lot of cats do when they catch bodies, Cassidy made the decision to surrender on June 17th, 2005. They denied him bail and kept him locked up at Curran-Fromhold Correctional Facility, one of Philly's main detention centers where a lot of street cats end up waiting for trial. The legal proceedings moved pretty quick for such a serious case. On January 25, 2006, Cassidy got convicted of involuntary manslaughter, aggravated assault, and weapons possession. Getting involuntary manslaughter instead of murder suggests the jury believed his actions weren't premeditated, even though someone definitely died because of his choices. He got sentenced to 23 months and ended up serving 8 months with time served. They released him on March 2nd, 2006 and put him on probation. That light sentence was controversial as hell, especially considering the severity of the violence and the fact that an innocent person lost their life. 8 months for being involved in a shooting that killed someone seems like a slap on the wrist, and it definitely raised questions about whether his celebrity status influenced the proceedings. Cassidy's legal troubles didn't end there though. He caught more charges, including a 2011 probation violation and 2017 marijuana possession. Those later arrests show he kept having run-ins with the law, though nothing as serious as the original shooting case. Bloodhound Lil Jeff. Bloodhound Lil Jeff was a young Chicago drill rapper from the Bloodhound Gang, Taekwon World/63RD, alleged to have committed up to 11 murders as a hitman before being gunned down in June 2024. The fact that a 17-year-old was allegedly responsible for 11 bodies is something that should shock anyone. But in Chicago's drill scene, it made him a legend among his peers and a target for his enemies. He boasted about killings in tracks and social media, styling himself as a serial killer in the drill scene. Unlike other rappers who might exaggerate their street credentials, Lil Jeff was allegedly self-snitching in real time, using his music and social media to brag about actual murders he had committed. This level of recklessness and disregard for consequences was shocking even by drill standards. His criminal history involved no major prior jail time due to his youth, but multiple unsolved murders were attributed to him, with police investigations hampered by the lack of witnesses willing to come forward. The code of silence in Chicago's gang culture makes it nearly impossible for police to solve these cases, especially when the alleged perpetrator is a minor. Legal consequences were minimal during his life, but posthumously, alleged killers like Q50 faced scrutiny, with self-defense claims surrounding his death. His interactions with law enforcement included being a suspect in gang shootings, but he evaded arrest until he was killed. Lil Jeff's beefs were extensive and deadly. He had conflicts with O'Block, King Von affiliates, and Q50, his alleged killer, and Trapsody Taro suffered a jail attack by his affiliate. He dissed rivals in songs, escalating the violence that would ultimately lead to his own death. Recent updates in 2025 2025 include videos like Lil Jeff's Killer Confesses from June and Why Rappers Feared Lil Jeff from February. Headlines focus on his legacy as a rapping hitman, while negative news highlights his alleged 11 bodies and death in cold blood. There have been court outbursts by his alleged killers, and his story has even sparked calls for Netflix documentaries. The most disturbing aspects of Lil Jeff's story are the details of how young he was when this allegedly started. His criminal background stems from Chicago's violent South Side, where he allegedly started killing at age 14 amid ongoing gang wars. What turned him into an alleged killer was drill culture's glorification of body counts, poverty, and retaliation beefs, making him what observers called a strange and twisted hitman who rapped about his crimes. He was affiliated with Taekwon World and frequently self-snitched in his lyrics, drawing comparisons to King Von as another serial killer rapper. The fact that drill culture had evolved to the point where teenagers were openly bragging about multiple murders shows how completely the genre had merged with actual criminal activity. Lil Jeff's death came in a retaliatory shooting in June 2024, ending the life of someone who had allegedly terrorized Chicago's South Side for years, despite being a minor. He and his affiliate Lil Scoom 89 died a month apart in similar ambushes, showing how the cycle of violence eventually catches up with everyone involved. Dresta. Dresta made his mark as part of the duo with BG Knockout, especially through their work with Eazy-E on Real Motherfucking G's and their 1995 album Real Brothers. Their collaboration with Eazy-E came at the perfect time, when the legendary NWA member was in the middle of heated beefs with his former groupmates Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. Dresta and BG Knockout became Eazy's soldiers in what was essentially a hip-hop war. Real Motherfucking G's wasn't just a diss track. It was a straight declaration of war that helped define the aggressive, confrontational style of West Coast gangster rap. The song and its video were designed to completely destroy Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg's credibility, questioning their street authenticity and mocking everything about their public image. For Dresta, this track established him as a legitimate force in gangster rap, but it also made him enemies of some of the most powerful people in the music industry. But Dresta's involvement in this beef wasn't just about music, it was connected to real street politics. He was affiliated with the Nutty, Block Compton Crips, a legitimate gang with actual territory and ongoing conflicts with other criminal organizations. This meant that when Dresta was dissing other rappers, he wasn't just talking shit for entertainment. He was potentially escalating real conflicts that could lead to violence and death. Dresta's criminal history started early with a 1988 conviction for assaulting a gang member. He ended up serving 5 years at the California Youth Authority until 1993, which meant he spent a significant portion of his late teens and early 20s locked up. Missing those crucial years when West Coast hip-hop was exploding meant he came home hungry and ready to make up for lost time. The most serious incident in Dresta's criminal career happened in 1994, right after his collaboration with Eazy-E had made him famous. He got involved in a gang shootout that resulted in the death of Tyrone Thomas. During this same shootout, Dresta himself got wounded, showing how chaotic and unpredictable these gang conflicts could become. Getting shot during the same incident where you allegedly killed someone demonstrates the kind of wild, dangerous situations that gang members regularly find themselves in. Instead of fighting murder charges, Dresta worked out a plea deal for voluntary manslaughter. He got what many people considered an extremely light sentence of just 1 year of probation. That lenient sentence was controversial, especially since someone had died, and it raised questions about whether his newfound celebrity status had influenced the legal proceedings. The beefs that defined Dresta's career went way beyond just lyrical exchanges. His conflicts with Tha Dog Pound and Death Row artists included actual physical violence, like when Nate Dogg hit him with a golf club. These physical altercations showed that the tension between these artists had escalated far beyond just rap battles and had become genuine personal conflicts that put everyone involved at risk. Dresta also contributed to tracks like DPGK, Dog Pound Killer, as responses to perceived disrespect. These diss tracks were part of an ongoing cycle of musical retaliation that helped escalate tensions throughout the West Coast hip-hop scene during the mid-1990s. Even later in his career, Dresta continued to have conflicts with other artists. He criticized Dr. Dre for delays on the Detox album and for surrounding himself with mediocre artists, despite reportedly writing a song for the project. He also had disputes with The Game over a failed signing to Black Wall Street Records, showing that his confrontational approach to business relationships continued as he got older. Raw Diggs was the head of the Bloods-affiliated Murderous Mad Dogs gang, and just the name alone tells you everything you need to know about how these dudes were moving. This wasn't some neighborhood crew selling drugs on the corner. This was a sophisticated criminal organization involved in everything from murder to drug trafficking to extortion, with Raw Diggs calling all the shots. Raw Diggs had some music out there, collaborating with cats like Uncle Murda and posting videos on YouTube with titles like Eulogy. But here's the crazy part. His music wasn't just artistic expression. It was basically him him confessing to actual crimes on camera. His lyrics and videos ended up being used as evidence in his trial, which shows how stupid he was to be bragging about real criminal activity in his rhymes. Rah Diggs started his criminal career early, getting arrested at just 14 years old for armed robbery. He ended up doing time at Rikers Island as a juvenile, which is where a lot of young cats in New York get their first real taste of the criminal justice system. Rikers is notorious for being a violent, chaotic place that often hardens young people rather than rehabilitating them. He caught another case in 2001 but beat the murder charge, though he got hit with drug trafficking in 2002 and served 6 years at Southport Correctional Facility. That early murder acquittal probably made him feel invincible, like he could get away with anything. But that kind of confidence in beating the system often leads to taking bigger and more dangerous risks. The crimes that would ultimately bring down Rah Diggs were straight demonic. In 2014, he got convicted of racketeering, drug trafficking, and 3 separate murders. These murders included Frederick Brooks in 2001, Richard Russo in 2008, and Victor Zapata in 2009. 3 murders spread across 8 years shows this wasn't some brief period of violence. This was a sustained pattern of killing that continued for nearly a decade. What made Rah Diggs' case particularly significant legally was how prosecutors used his own rap content against him. The court rejected his argument that his rap videos couldn't be used as evidence, setting an important precedent for how artistic expression can be used in criminal trials. His videos contained detailed boasts about violence and criminal activity that prosecutors argued weren't just artistic braggadocio, but actual confessions to real crimes. On April 2nd, 2015, Rah Diggs got hit with 12 life sentences plus 105 years. That sentence is so extreme, it's basically the legal system saying this man should never, ever breathe free air again. They sent him to ADX Florence, the supermax prison where they keep the most dangerous criminals in the federal system, including terrorists and organized crime bosses. ADX Florence is designed for prisoners who are considered too dangerous even for regular maximum security prisons. The fact that Rah Diggs ended up there shows how seriously the federal government views the threat he poses, even while locked up. He got transferred briefly in 2022, but was back at ADX Florence by 2025, suggesting any temporary moves were probably for legal proceedings rather than permanent relocations. Rah Diggs' conflicts extended beyond just his criminal activities into his interactions with other hip-hop figures. He had a 2010 beef with Jim Jones that involved a studio altercation and then allegedly pursuing him to a nightclub with a hit squad for an attempted killing. This incident shows how his criminal activities spilled over into his music industry relationships, turning what might have been a simple business dispute into a potentially deadly situation. All his appeals have been denied, and there haven't been any changes in his status as of 2025. Recent coverage only mentions historical reporting from his 2014 to 2015 conviction, which makes sense given that he's locked up for life in a supermax facility with no realistic chance of ever getting out. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.